They called me the family failure for 15 years. I was the one who always seemed to make mistakes, the one who couldn't get things right, the one my parents worried about. They thought I was hopeless. They thought I would never do anything important. They whispered behind my back and sometimes even in front of me. But all of that changed the day they stepped onto my private jet and realized I was a billionaire. The invitation to the Vesper family barbecue was sitting on my marble kitchen counter. It had been there for a while unopened. The letters on the envelope were bright red, shining in the morning sun as it came through my huge glass windows. I could see the Arizona sunrise making the room glow. For 15 years I had stayed quiet, kept my distance, and let my family think whatever they wanted. I had let them believe I was the youngest failure, the dreamer, the one who would never make it. But now everything is about to change. And it wasn't because I wanted them to know. It just happened that way. I looked at my phone again. The headline that would change everything read, Forbes 30 under 40, Eulalia Vesper's virtual design empire worth $4.1 billion. The article was going to be published tomorrow, just 2 days before the family reunion. 2 days, and all my secrets would be out. All the years of hard work, all the hours of coding, creating, and dreaming would finally be known. My assistant's voice came through the intercom. Your brother Darian is online. Of course it was Darian. He had been calling nonstop ever since the news came out. I sighed and picked up the phone. Hi, Darian. What the heck, Sarai? He barked. I just got off the phone with CNBC. They asked me how it feels to be the brother of a billionaire. Are you going to explain something to me? I looked out at the desert from my penthouse in Scottsdale. The sun was shining across the mountains, the sky orange and pink, and the city below looked tiny. I said, You'll find out with everyone else. Cut the nonsense, he shouted. You let us think you were broke for years. Mom was worried. Dad was worried. Everyone is worried. How could you do this to us? I laughed a little. You mean all those times you lectured me, saying I was wasting my future? Or when you told me to go work at Uncle Orson's insurance office because it was safe? You think you were helping, but you were just trying to make me into what you wanted me to be. Darian was quiet for a moment. How long have you been hiding this? He finally asked. I walked over to the balcony, watching one of my 3 Teslas pull into the driveway below. Remember when I moved into that old apartment near Tempe? He nodded. Yeah, when you started that 3D art stuff 15 years ago. You never said anything else. No, I didn't, I said aloud to myself, smirking. Everyone thought I was crazy for giving up a finance degree to play with graphics. But what no one knew was that I had already sold my first VR sculpture collection for $660,000. $660,000. Back then, it seemed like a fortune to me, and it was only the beginning. Darian sounded stunned. Wow, really? 6 months later, I sold another collection for $200,000. By the time Dad was announcing at Dairy Auntma's dinner that I was just figuring things out, I had already passed $1 million. Orson, my words, Darian was trying to calculate everything in his head. But, you still borrowed money from Mom and Dad for rent, he said. You drove that old beat-up Civic until last year. I laughed again. I never borrowed money. Darian, I asked them to invest in my company, and they refused. That Civic? That was my choice. Just like this penthouse. Just like the Gulfstream G700 in my private hangar downtown. Just like my private jet. He whispered, voice cracking. How rich are you exactly? I thought about all those dinners where I was the invisible one, the one who never got credit. Our youngest sister, Lyra, would always theatrically pay the bill and sigh, saying, Life must be so hard for Sarai. I told Darian, Forbes will print $7.2 billion. But honestly, the real number is closer to $10 billion. The sound Darian made was somewhere between a gasp and a small scream. I've got a board meeting, I added casually. See you at the reunion. Click. I turned to the intercom. Isolde, is everything ready? Yes, Miss Vesper. The jet is fueled. The Rolls-Royce fleet is ready to pick up each family member. The private island is booked, and all NDAs are signed, she said calmly. Perfect. I picked up the reunion invitation again. For 15 years, my family had boxed me in. I was the weird one, the dreamer, the financial disappointment. But this time, they were going to see the real me. My phone buzzed. It was Lyra. OMG, Sarai. This Forbes thing. Tell me it's a prank. What's happening? I smiled and left her to read. Funny how the quiet ones always surprise everyone. Lyra, who loved to brag about her corporate job, would finally see that the artsy older sister she thought couldn't do anything had built an empire. The intercom buzzed again. Miss Vesper, your parents are on the line. I didn't miss a beat. Tell them I'm in a meeting. I glanced at my watch. Maybe I'd take the helicopter to my board meeting today. I gathered my things, tablet, sunglasses, notes for my next pitch deck, and my mind drifted back to the day everything changed. The day I decided to keep my success a secret, 15 years earlier. 3D design isn't real art, Dad scoffed across the dinner table. And this crypto art thing? It's a scam. No one in their right mind is going to pay for computer-generated nonsense. I was 22, fresh out of Wharton, sitting at Sunday dinner in our family's Phoenix estate. I was trying to explain my vision, trying to tell them that I had something special, something new, something the world would want. Actually, Dad, I said, I just sold my first collection for enough money to. He snapped. Either come work at the firm, like we planned, or you're on your own. No support. No safety net. You'll get nothing from us. Mom gave me her patronizing smile, patting my hand. Honey, we're just worried. You need something stable, a real career. I looked around the table. Dad's stern glare. Mom's polite pity. Darian's silence. Lyra's smirk. That was the moment I didn't tell them about the $50,000 I had already made, the 3 galleries that wanted me, or the venture capital firms emailing me every day. I'll figure it out on my own, I said. 2 weeks later, I moved into a tiny studio in Tempe. They assumed I was broke and too stubborn to ask for help. But I was quietly building a digital empire. Year 1 was brutal. I worked 18-hour days. I coded, I made art, I networked, I barely slept. My first major collection, Neon Syntax, sold out in 6 hours, earning $1,200,000. I reinvested every single penny into my business. I hired engineers, built platforms, and changed what digital ownership meant. Every time I visited home, I wore faded jeans and drove my old Civic. Mom would say, "Let me help with rent," and I would reply, "No thanks, I'm doing just fine." I didn't want anyone to know how much I was achieving. I wanted to prove it silently. By the end of the first year, my network had grown to $10 million. By year 3, $100 million. But to my family, I was still just Sarai, the dreamer wasting her potential. Now, 15 years later, I stepped onto my private helicopter on the roof of my Scottsdale building. I thought about how the little white lie had grown into a billion-dollar secret. In 2 days, my family would find out everything. My phone buzzed again. A text from Dad, "We need to talk." I smirked and turned off my phone. After 15 years of condescending comments and backhanded concern, they were finally going to eulalia the truth. I was going to make sure they never forgot it. The Forbes article dropped at exactly 6 a.m. I was already up, black coffee in hand, laptop open in my sleek home office. A wall of monitors lit up the room with news and updates. The headline read, "Digital Art Disruptor. How Sarai Vesper Quietly Built a $10 billion Empire." There was a photo I personally approved. Me standing in front of my best-selling VR gallery, wearing a custom outfit worth more than Lyra's annual salary. The article didn't just reveal my wealth. It showed the empire I had built quietly in the background. The tech platforms, the auctions, the investors, the partnerships. My phone exploded with notifications. Lyra. Wait, is this real? $10 billion? Darian. I told you something was up yesterday. Mom. Sarai, sweetheart. Please call me. This has to be a mistake. Aunt Eulalia. Is this really our Sarai? I muted the chat and checked my inbox. There were dozens of interview requests, investment pitches, even invitations to give a TED Talk. But one email stood out. It was from Dad's longtime business partner, Lucien Varela. Sarai, I believe there may be strategic value in exploring synergies between Vesper Interactive and Varela Capital. I understand your father may have had past reservations, but I assure you we are open to evolving. I laughed out loud. 3 years ago, I pitched him a collaboration, and he looked me in the eye and said, "We don't gamble on internet gimmicks." The intercom buzzed again. "Miss Vesper, your mother is in the lobby. She's asking to see you." I pulled up the security feed. There she was, Serafina Vesper, perfect as always in her tailored Chanel outfit, arguing with security like her life depended on it. I sighed. Time to face the first ripple of the storm. I looked out at the Arizona mountains, sunlight pouring through my glass walls. Behind me hung a Keith Haring original worth more than my parents' entire house. My mother whispered, voice shaking as she stepped fully into the penthouse. What is all this?" "This is my real home, Mom," I said calmly, handing her a cup of coffee. "Not the modest little condo I kept for family visits, but my real home." She walked toward the floor-to-ceiling windows, her heels clicking against the polished marble floors. How long have you been living like this? 15 years, I said, smiling. I Eulalia net on the kitchen island, thinking about the night you and Dad said that digital art was just a phase, something no one would ever take seriously. I remembered your faces cellularly. You both thought it was just a silly hobby, something I would grow out of. She turned slowly, my mother, her perfect face now showing confusion. There was something else in her eyes, too, something I couldn't quite understand. Maybe it was a surprise, maybe it was a little fear. We all watched her carefully because she had never looked this way before. We saw me struggling back then. The tiny apartment I lived in. The old Civic car I drove. How I had to scrape by and ask for help sometimes. I gave a small, dry smile. I never asked for help with rent, I said softly. I asked you both to invest in my company. There's a big difference between the two, I explained. The apartment and the car were just part of a story. I wanted you to think I was struggling, because that's the version of me you wanted to see. I played the role of the broke dreamer, the lost one, the one you always thought I was. That was the only version of me you ever accepted. Her lips opened in surprise. You lied to us, Sarai, for 15 years? No, I said quietly. I didn't lie. I just didn't correct the story you chose to believe. You all decided what you wanted to think. You never looked deeper. She sank slowly into one of my fancy leather chairs. I could see her real age for the first time in years. She looked tired, shocked, and a little scared. She had always looked perfect, untouchable, but now she looked human. Does anyone else know? She asked, her voice trembling. Just Darian, I said. He found out when the press release went out. I think he tried to warn you. She nodded slowly. He called your father and said it must be a mistake. Some other Sarai Vesper. I walked to my desk and handed her a folder. Here's the proposal I gave Dad 3 years ago. If he had invested the $1 million I asked for, his share would be worth over $100 million today. Her hands trembled. He said you were looking for a handout, she whispered. He said your art had failed. And you believed him. She didn't answer when I asked her. Did any of you ever come to one of my art shows? Google my name. I turned back to the window and watched the city buzz below. The family reunion was still happening, but I had changed the location. I had bought the entire resort. Everyone would be picked up by Rolls-Royces, flown on my private jet, and celebrate on my private island. Your island? My mother whispered, barely above a breath. In the Caribbean, I said casually. I bought it last year after closing my first billion-dollar deal. I turned to face her fully. Mom, this time, I won't be the quiet one sitting at dinner while everyone talks about their promotions, their new houses, their new cars. I have things to say too. She stood up slowly, smoothing her silk skirt with trembling hands. Your father, when he sees all of this, her voice faltered. He'll have no choice but to admit that his daughter, his artist daughter, built something bigger than anything in the Vesper family. I said gently. And Mom, that's just the beginning. I walked her to the elevator, pausing just before the doors opened. Oh, and one more thing. Remember that Bentley you always wanted? The one Dad said was too impractical. She looked confused. I bought 3 of them last month, I said with a shrug. Just because I could. The elevator doors closed on her stunned face. As soon as she was gone, I hit the intercom. Isolde, is everything ready for the reunion? Yes, Miss Vesper, she replied smoothly. The island staff are fully briefed. Each guest will get a personalized folder showing every investment offer they declined over the years, along with current valuations. The video timeline of your achievements is ready for the welcome dinner. Excellent, I said. I picked up my phone, opened the family group chat, and typed a single message. Looking forward to seeing everyone at the reunion. Dress appropriately for a private island. Transportation will be provided. Then I refreshed the stock dashboard on my laptop. My company's value had surged since the Forbes article came out. Another billion added to my net worth. Before sunrise, I thought of my father, probably in his office right now, trying to understand that the daughter he dismissed had quietly become one of the richest women in America. I thought of Lyra, still bragging about her 6-figure salary and Hampton Beach house, blissfully unaware that I could buy her entire life with a week of my interest. This reunion was going to be unforgettable. My phone buzzed again. A message from Dad. We need to talk before the reunion. Some things are better discussed privately. I typed back. Everything will be discussed at the reunion. Dad, isn't that what reunions are for? Then I called Isolde again. Have the design team repaint the helipad. Make sure my name is clearly visible from the air. It's already done, Miss Vesper. Anything else? I paused, thinking about 15 years of pity, mockery, and being branded the family disappointment. Yes, have the Forbes article framed and hung in every room on the island. I want it to be the first thing they see, no matter where they turn. I ended the call and caught my reflection in the glass. Calm, confident, wealthy beyond imagination, and finally ready to show them all who I really was. The morning of the Vesper family reunion arrived, cellular and bright. I stood on the private runway of my Scottsdale airfield, watching 3 black Rolls-Royces pull in one after another. The doors opened. First came my father, still upright, still sharp-eyed, but his confidence had dimmed. My mother followed, more subdued than usual after our conversation days earlier. Darian, Lyra, and a wave of aunts, uncles, and cousins trailed behind, their faces full of disbelief and hidden judgment. Waiting for them in the center of it all sat my jet, sleek and white, geolaliuming in the sunlight, with Vesper Interactive written in silver along the fuselage. "Welcome, everyone," I said, letting my voice carry. "The ride was comfortable, Sarai?" my father asked, stepping forward, trying to reclaim his usual authority. "This is a bit much," he said. I smiled. "The resort was too public, Dad. This reunion needed to be more meaningful." "Your island," Lyra muttered, clutching her Dior bag tightly. As they boarded the jet, I watched their eyes shift, soaking in the gold-trimmed interior, the original artwork, the crystal glasses. "Is that a real Picasso?" Aunt Amara whispered. "Yes," I replied. "I picked it up last year." My father cleared his throat. "Sarai, maybe we should talk." "We will when we land. Until then, enjoy the champagne," I said, tilting my glass. "It costs more than your company made last quarter." He flinched. 2 hours later, we descended toward a glittering jewel in the ocean, my 300-acre private island, with a luxury resort nestled at its heart. Let the reunion begin. From the sky, it was visible exactly as planned. My name, Eulalia Vesper, spelled out in letters so big they could practically be seen from space. "Hi," Lyra gasped, misreading the name at first. Then her jaw dropped as we landed. The helipad was surrounded by massive digital screens, each cycling through my most successful immersive art collections. The sale prices were prominently displayed. $2.3 million, $670 million, $11.5 million, each one a statement in itself. "Welcome to Vesper Island," I said, stepping onto the tarmac, my own little slice of paradise. "Little Darian," muttered a cousin, eyes wide as he looked around. The resort was a seamless blend of futuristic architecture and untouched Caribbean beauty. "Everyone's rooms are ready," I continued. "There's some reading material waiting in each suite. I suggest you review it before dinner." The reading material was customized. For Dad, a printed timeline of every deal he had declined, with present-day values. For Lyra, a comparison of her entire annual salary versus what I earn in interest per day. For Darian, an internal audit showing how much his firm lost by turning down a collaboration with my platform. I gave them an hour to settle in, then summoned them to the main dining hall, a glass-walled space overlooking turquoise waves. The long table sparkled with crystal, silver, and place settings worth more than most cars. On every wall, the Forbes article was framed, backlit, and impossible to ignore. They entered slowly, all pretense of confidence fading. Even their designer clothes looked oddly out of place here. "Peel Elias, have a seat," I said warmly. "We have quite a bit to talk about." "Sarai," Dad began, attempting diplomacy. "I think I speak for all of us when I say we're surprised." "Surprised," I repeated with a soft laugh. "Not angry that I kept this from you. Not disappointed I didn't share the truth. Just surprised we didn't know." And for the first time in 15 years, they were seeing the real me. The Sarai Vesper they had never believed in, the Sarai Vesper who had quietly built everything from nothing. Mom whispered softly, "No, you didn't want to know." I shook my head and corrected her. Every time I tried to talk about my work, they would change the subject. Every time I tried to sit with them at the table, they would ignore me. "But the apartment," Lyra said quietly. "And the Civic, the times I paid the check, because I thought you were broke." I finished her sentence calmly. "Did you enjoy that?" I asked. Lyra, my successful sister, the one everyone called the perfect child, looked down at her hands. Her cheeks turned bright red. St. Eulalia's she looked a little ashamed for once. "Let me show you something," I said in a calm voice. I pressed a secret button on the side of the dining table. Slowly, motorized panels opened up and big, high-definition screens descended from the ceiling. A long timeline appeared, showing my journey, every step I had taken, and all the times people had said I couldn't do it. 2010. This 3D art thing is a waste of your degree, Dad said. But I didn't give up. I sold my first digital sculpture collection for $50,000. 2012. Sarai, you need a stable career, Mom said. I didn't stop. My company's value grew to $15 million. 2015. At Eulalie asked one of us is doing well, Lyra said, trying to make me feel small. I closed a $120 million partnership with a major tech firm. 2018. Cryptort sounds like a scam, Darian said. But my platform now had over 500,000 users and made $600 million in sales. 2022. We don't fund online gimmicks, Dad's firm said. My company was now worth over $3 billion. Every single comment, every single time you looked at me like I was chasing a silly dream, I remembered. I remembered all of it, and I used it. My voice stayed calm and steady as I spoke. Dad swallowed hard and asked, "Why didn't you tell us?" "Because you never wanted to hear it," I said firmly. "You need to understand that success doesn't always wear a suit. It doesn't follow your rules or playbook. Sometimes the person you underestimate is the one who changes everything." I walked to the edge of the room. Glass walls showed endless turquoise water, shining under the sunlight. The hardest part wasn't keeping my achievements secret. The hardest part was watching all of you celebrate each other, while I was quietly building something amazing that you couldn't see. "Mediocrity," Cashin said through gritted teeth. "Yes," I replied. "You played it safe. That was your ceiling. Mine was higher." I turned to Lyra. "You bragged about your six-figure salary like it was gold. I made that much money during a coffee break." Dad stood up. "Enough. We were wrong." "No," I said firmly. "I don't want an apology. I want you to understand." I pressed another button. The screens shifted, revealing the prototype of my latest creation. It was incredible. It will launch next month. It would change how art is created, owned, and valued. Its estimated worth? $10 billion. I looked at all of them. "This time, you will see it happen with your own eyes. No more doubting." The room became very quiet. That kind of silence only happens when illusions finally break. My family sat frozen, absorbing the truth they had ignored for so long. Finally, my mother spoke. "We're proud of you, Leia. We should have been proud all along." "Thank you, Mom," I said gently. "But I didn't do this for your pride. I did it because it was my dream, my vision." I looked around at the luxurious surroundings they could no longer deny. Now it was my empire. "So what happens now?" Darian asked quietly. I poured myself a glass of wine. "Now we have dinner as a family. But this time we do it my way. No more hiding. No more pretending. No more tending to your expectations." I raised my glass to the truth. One by one, they lifted their glasses. The shock hadn't fully worn off, but something was changing. The rest of the evening passed in a blur of delicious food, fine wine, and slow, warming conversation. For the first time in 15 years, they weren't just seeing me, they were really seeing me. When they finally went to their suites, I stayed behind, watching the moonlight dance across the waves. Isolde appeared beside me. Her voice was soft. "Was it worth it?" she asked. I thought back to the timeline, their stunned faces, the pride they never showed. "Yes," I said, "but not for the reason I thought. It wasn't about proving them wrong anymore. It was about finally being free, fully myself." I smiled. "Tomorrow, we will show them the future." Their world of mutual funds, corporate ladders, and safe choices was fading. The world I built, interactive, immersive, and transformative, was just beginning. Later that night, I found a note slipped under my door. My father had written it. "I was wrong, not just about your business, but about everything. You didn't just succeed. You changed the game. I'm sorry I didn't see it sooner." I placed it in a frame beside the receipt from my first digital sale, $50,000, a reminder of where it all began. The next morning, as my family gathered for breakfast, their attitude had softened. Their curiosity was blooming. I realized something important. True success isn't just about proving others wrong. It's about proving yourself right. And sometimes the sweetest victory isn't loud. It's quietly knowing you built something amazing while the world doubted you. My phone buzzed. Vesper Interactive announced a revolutionary new platform. The future had arrived, and this time, they'd be watching it unfold. No more hiding. No more pretending. Just success, on my terms. Finally, I Eulalie back and watched the sunrise over the turquoise water. I felt light, proud, and free. All the years of waiting, all the doubts, and all the teasing, they didn't matter anymore. I had done it. I had built my dream. And now the world would finally see it. No one could ignore me again.